Now, Vanessa Willie is a certified relationship coach and associate practitioner of the Institute of Family Systems Engineering. She has 8 years experience in counseling, and she is also a Mandela Fellow and the founder of Janessa Foundation, of course, international. The topic of discussion this morning is simple: marriage and spirituality. Sometimes this causes problems within couples, whether they're intending to get married or maybe they're married already. And what do you do when somebody is on this level spiritually and the other person is on this level? How do you create a balance?
What is most important to the person who is on this level spiritually? What are they craving for? The last time I was here, I talked about compatibility.
Yeah.
So it is important that you are with someone who you're compatible with spiritually. So you don't say, when you talk about spirituality, you're talking about someone who obviously believes in the celestial. So if you're talking to someone who doesn't understand anything about spirituality, it becomes very difficult for you to reach out, except the person is teachable and is willing to, shift grounds. Because to a large extent, spiritual people, their life is governed, their belief system governed the way they live life generally, or is supposed to reflect in the way they live life.
Why do you think, though, that there seems to be a lot of, especially in marriages, there seems to be a lot of frustration when it comes to spiritual things or religiosity and things like that? And it doesn't have to be Christianity or Islam. Any religion that you can find. So you find, let's say in a Muslim home, so the man is very spiritual, he's a committed Muslim. But the wife is a bit chill. She doesn't want to be a part of all that because maybe her background was a bit more secular. So that causes frustration for the man. Why do you think that happens, and why can't there just be understanding?
Well, understanding is a big word when it comes to marriage, because a lot of people go into marriage with the perception or with the intention that they are going to change the other person. And that's where the frustration starts. Because if you go into marriage with an open mind, this is what I saw. You can't see everything. Marriage is almost like a puzzle. When you open it, what you see is what you get. So if you go into marriage with an open mind and willing to accept, adaptability should be a word that everybody who is intending to get married should incorporate and learn. Adaptability quotient, it's very important. If you're able to adapt to your partner, you are more likely to influence them. But if you're going into marriage with the hope that I'm going to make her a more spiritual person, I'm going to make him a praying person, you find out that this person is a formed adult. They've passed their formidable years. You can't begin to change that person. They are not babies. Yeah. You can only influence the person if the person sees a reason to want to even be influenced. So it is good to have a teachable partner, but don't go into marriage with the intention that you want to change that person. Now, that's where the frustration starts. One
of the things that I want to ask you is, so when you see, when you're in a situation like this, so it's a marriage, and there's a bit of divergence when it comes to spiritual things. So what should be the midpoint? What would you advise? So for instance, the man is the most spiritual person, or the woman is the most spiritual person. The man is not that spiritual. He doesn't go to church maybe once a month, and that's even when he's pushed. So where is the balance? So is the balance the spiritual person moves closer to the secular in the area of, okay, let me reduce my prayers? Or is the balance the person who is more secular moves closer to the spiritual person?
Spirituality is not something that you say. It's a lifestyle. For a Christian, it should reflect in the things that you do. What that means is that you should have an open mind enough to be able to be accommodating. To what extent does your partner's own spirituality affect your marriage? Does it affect the way you raise your kids and other things? That is where you now begin to have some deep discussions. But I think that, like we were having a conversation off air, the fact that your husband doesn't wake up in the morning and you both kneel down and feel like a happy family and you pray, doesn't mean the person is not spiritual. Spirituality is a personal thing. How it affects your marriage is now something you want to discuss. Yeah. So how it affects how you raise your kids, that's what you should discuss. But trying to force someone to be spiritual is could be perceived as being hypocritical because you put that person under pressure. And nobody wants to be in an atmosphere where they feel that aura of resentment, being judged, under pressure to perform at all times. So you need to be adaptable, like I said, and then also be able to make your spirituality fun. So I married you, a fashionable girl and all of that. Now you're spiritual. I mean, you look like, I don't know, I could pass you on the street and I don't recognize you. And the man is wondering, is this what spirituality is about? If this is it, I don't want any part of it. So do you understand? So you need to make this lifestyle that you want to influence your partner to be fun.
Yeah. So I want to go to the next question. So two people get married. And both of them, when they got married, they were, in quotes, in the world.
Yeah.
And so now that they're married, one person starts getting spiritual, starts getting deep, starts getting very committed. And the other person is now wondering about this change that is going on in my partner. This obviously will cause some friction in the marriage. So what should one or the other person do in this situation?
First, the person who has become spiritual needs to excuse the person who isn't, and give them time. How long that time takes. And influence is something that is very powerful. People, just like your children, become what they see you become, not what you say. So they replicate who you are. You have the power to influence the person you're sharing the same bed with by your lifestyle. So when you're a nag, or, I mean, you're saying you're spiritual, but that doesn't, it only reflects on Sunday morning when you want to do something, some really religiosity, as it were. You can't influence your partner. But if the person is seeing something good from this new lifestyle, it will take them time, and it's their process. You need to be patient with the person because it took you time to get to where you are. And everyone needs to own their process. So you need to allow that person, adapt to that person while gradually influencing them by your lifestyle. I
like that. So now you spoke about children very briefly, but you know that when children are now involved in this equation, it's fireworks sometimes. So I had a story of a particular person who, at the time, they both had separate religions. One was Christian, one was Muslim. And of course they had kids. So it was sort of like a secular home. They weren't really paying attention to religious issues until the guy then started becoming very spiritual. And he wanted the kids to be involved with him. So he was still like, okay, wife, you can do what you like, but the kids are coming with me. And of course she then became a bit apprehensive about that because she now didn't know what her kids were being taught. What do you do with the kids?
It's
tough, I know.
It's a difficult situation. That's why these issues are better managed before you say I do. Because after you said I do, you can't easily say I don't do anymore. So as it affects your children, have a baseline. What are the values you're trying to communicate? I'm sure that, you know, in Christendom, Muslim, there's a baseline. You have to anchor on justice, equity, and fairness. On these three pillars, you can't go wrong. Every law in the world, even if you don't believe, you're not a spiritual person, is built, the laws that govern life are built on these three things. Equity, justice, and fairness. So what are your children learning? Are they anchored on these pillars? You also have influence on your children. Yes, they may decide, okay, I'm going to the mosque or anything, but your life, these children will get to a point where they are able to make decisions for themselves by weighing the options that are before them, and they choose. We oftentimes want to micromanage our children. We want them to become exactly what we want them to become, and we forget that children, just like you have become an adult, you had your own path. There's a destiny for you, and you need to just help that child. You're a caretaker. Help that child to go in the direction of their destiny, not where you want them to go.
Wow, Vanessa Willie, that's absolutely awesome. Thank you for taking us through this whole spiritual process this morning.